How do you build a culture of trust in the workplace? I don't know about you, and I don't know how you landed on this video, but I don't want to work at a place where there isn't some culture or foundation of trust. In fact, there's a heap of research that's found that companies that are able to build a really solid foundation of trust are more productive, they have less turnover, there are all sorts of benefits for having that foundation. The problem is, it's kind of hard to know exactly what to do to build it. And so what I found in working with my clients who are leaders and educators within organizations who are seeking to amplify a culture of connection, belonging, and trust is that when I share personal stories, they're really sticky and they resonate. And so this video, I'm gonna unpack I'm gonna share 5 stories from my own actual experience that have a lesson embedded in them on how you can actually build a culture of trust in the workplace. The 5 stories, along with the 5 lessons that I'm gonna be sharing here, pair with 5 chapters from the book that Will and I put together called Ask Powerful Questions, Create Conversations That Matter. And this framework, which actually, framework looks like a pyramid of mindsets and tools and skills, is designed to help leaders and educators accelerate and build a culture of connection, belonging, and trust through the way that communication happens and connection happens in that organization. I trust these stories will make you laugh, cry, and cringe. Let's get into it. First story is about my neighbor, Jim. He lives right next to me, 70 years old or so, and he's working on selling his house. He actually wants to live in California. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. February, Pittsburgh, not good for Jim. And so he's looking to sell the house. And I've got this mindset that we should treat our neighbors as we want to be treated, or treat our neighbors as maybe even better as they want to be treated. And so me and my wife, Kate, go out of our way when we feel like we have the bandwidth to do nice things. So Kate is like made an extra hamburger for Jim, and when we're making dinner, we'll make an extra plate and bring it over and whatnot. And all of this niceness, right? But I was commingled with the thought of, my brother's moving to Pittsburgh. What if he could buy Jim's house? What if we could get a good deal on Jim's house, whatever else? And so that intention or that thought or idea, which probably never gonna happen. In fact, I'm at this point recording this, I know it's never gonna happen. My brother bought a house somewhere else. But the fact that intention was even embedded there was a moment where I did something just genuinely altruistically nice for Jim. And he interpreted it as, oh, I'm trying to get a good deal on his house. Oh, it was like this gut-wrenching feeling, like, man, how much does that suck? And that, for me, hits on this first level of intention, right? And if I'm really honest with myself, I did want to be nice to Jim, and I kind of wanted to get a good deal on the house. And so my intention in that moment was me-focused, not we-focused, not others-centric. And so if you want to build a culture of trust in the workplace, you've got to build a culture where the intention of individuals, of teams, of leaders is crystal flippin' clear. You don't want to go through any level of meeting, any initiative, any change initiative, anything without intention and purpose being crystal clear all along the way. Because as soon as intention's not, people will start to doubt, or they'll start to assume maybe not so positive intentions. So really easy way to build a culture of trust: be super transparent and clear with your intentions. Lesson number 2 was taught to me in a painful way at a convenience store. I was actually teaching a class at Penn State University, and we were doing this exercise, a 3-hour class in facilitation and conversation skills. And in the middle of the class, we paused and said, experiment. You've got 30 minutes, leave this class, and you have 30 minutes to build a relationship of trust or build rapport with at least 3 strangers. Good luck. And so you can imagine students' reactions were all over the place, from like, oh gosh, I'm not doing this, to, anyway, I don't believe in asking anybody to do things that I'm not willing to do myself. And so on this particular day, I really didn't want to. I had done this 8 times in the past handful of months. But I said, okay, if I got to do it, I might as well run an errand while I'm at it. So I'm go down to this convenience store outside of Penn State called McClanahan's. And I get to the cash register. I pick out a pack of gum and something else I needed. And there was this woman with bright colored tattoos all over her neck. And the tool that we invited students to use was to follow your natural curiosity. In order to build trust, follow your natural curiosity based on what someone's wearing, carrying, or sharing. So really just be curious about the other person. Notice, wonder, and actually inquire what they've got going on. And so I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'm super curious about these tattoos. I teach this for a living. Here we go. Get up to the front and I say, yeah, I'm just curious. I have to ask, what's the story behind your tattoos? And she goes, I like the colors. Did not build a culture of trust in that moment. Fast forward, we get back to the classroom and energy is electric. Everybody's got tons of stuff to say. They've all just had 3 experiences. Room quiets down. We go to debrief and one student who doesn't typically say a lot pops up and goes, oh my gosh, I have to tell you this. I gotta say, when you rolled out this exercise, I was ticked. I did not want to do this, right? I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to be in the class, not out in public trying to build trust with a bunch of strangers. And so I figured if I had to do it, I might as well go down to a convenience store while I'm at it. And so I walked down to McClanahan's, I grabbed a couple things I needed, and I got to the cash register and there's this cashier with bright colored tattoos all over her neck. And I looked at her and I said, I just have to ask, I'm really curious, how annoying does it get when people ask you about your tattoos? She starts gushing. She's like, oh my gosh, you have no idea, blah, blah, blah. In fact, there was just this guy in here, bought a pack of gum and something else, and he gets to the front and he goes, what's the story behind your tattoos? Hold that story for a moment. We're gonna come back in a couple minutes and I'm gonna ask you, what was the difference between his failure and my success? Because it unlocks a very important ingredient for how to build a culture of trust in your organization. Third lesson isn't a specific moment. It's just something that I noticed. I don't know if this is true for you. Like my job is making connection and engagement really easy, and I'm pretty decent at it, except if it's with my family. Like at family reunions, like I'm just awkward. I feel like I'm not nearly as good as connecting. I'm not nearly as good at asking questions. You know, me and Will wrote a book about asking great questions. For some reason, like when I'm with my family, I just can't do it. Extended family, immediate family, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you felt this dynamic that you like revert back to some older, crappier version of yourself when you're with family. I've noticed that to be true. And so the lesson there is just to continue to push for openness. It's the third level in the Ask Powerful Questions pyramid, this idea of openness, which is both in terms of mindset, being open-minded to whatever's happening and not being super judgmental, in this case of myself when I'm interacting with family. But then also from the perspective of asking questions that are actually open-ended. So if you want to build a culture of trust in your organization, increase the number of good open-ended questions rooted in curiosity that are asked, right? If you're the boss, send an email to everybody that just says like, hey, ask somebody a question today. Or maybe even better, hey, did you ask somebody a question today? Or maybe even better, open question, hey, what question have you asked somebody today? You see that, right? From going from sentence to closed-ended question to open question. Doing that increases the amount of meaningful conversation and connection that happens, and that slowly over time is what actually serves as the foundation of trust. This idea of psychological safety, the social and interpersonal trust is, I don't know what percentage, maybe like 63% of trust, right? There are other components like reliability, do you show up on time, things like that. But the social interpersonal element is the majority of what people usually point to as this mythical creature called trust. Fourth lesson, learned the other day, I this year am on a mission to invest more into my marriage. I've invested so much into my work that I actually hired linked up with a counselor or therapist who I meet with every 2 weeks, and my sole focus is how can I be a better husband? Because there's totally times where I'm not the best husband that I could be. One insight that came from a session last week was that as in Will, my co-founder's words, like I have the gift of gab, right? Give me a topic and we can riff on it for a little bit. And that sometimes isn't helpful in my marriage because sometimes I just need to create space to listen to Kate And as a leader or an educator in your organization, sometimes in order to build a relationship of trust, you need to create space to listen to your employees. That does not mean send out an annual employee engagement survey to see what people think. That is not deep listening. That is, let me ask you these questions so that we can have all this data sitting in an archive and do nothing with later on. Maybe that's not giving enough credit to some of you who do wonderful things with your survey results. Last but not least, go back to the tattoo story. I would argue that the difference between that student's success in building a relationship of trust with that cashier and my complete and total failure was, drop a comment with what you think it was before you hear. I would say that it's empathy. My question was rooted in my curiosity. His question, he took off one of his shoes and put one of his feet into the cashier's shoes and said, what is your world like? Right? I bet you got these really cool, crazy tattoos. I bet your life might be a little bit annoying when people are constantly asking you about those tattoos. And he turned that assumption into natural curiosity, formed it into a question, and blurted it out. Right? So my invitation, if you want to build a culture of trust, ask empathetic, curiosity-based questions. If you want help doing that, there's a list of free, awesome questions in the link in the description. This is also what I get to do for a living. Feel free to poke around the website and learn what we do. I'm Chad Littlefield. Have an awesome day.